thanks for sticking around, because I thought I might have to pay a few of my friends to stay, so there was nobody here, so I really appreciate that. So my name's Andrea and I am the Group CISO at Acorn Life, which is an insurance company. It's island-based. We have a staff of about 300, including all our advisors and associates, and I'm here to tell you about the curved path to CISO. So 12 years ago, I was on an access course at Galway University here, just trying to figure out what was next in a life that had multiple chapters. I had worked in hotels, in travel, in marketing. I had my own household removals business. I had a market stall. You name it, I had a very varied career. I certainly didn't grow up in tech. I wasn't following a neat roadmap. And CISO wasn't ever on my radar. So if your career feels stuck or messy or late or early or non-traditional, then this talk is definitely for you. This is not a polished hero's journey. It's a very curved path with detours and doubting and a fair bit of blagging along the way. So I eventually realized that no one was going to make the career that I needed, so I actually had to just go ahead and make it myself. So I want you to just take a second and let's be honest here, have a look at that and just mentally in your head think, which ones of those do I tick? Now, if you don't mind, if you tick one of them, would you put your hand up? And if you tick more than one, keep your hand up. And that's the thing, it's all of us all the time, and especially in cybersecurity, because it's such a fast-paced life. Everybody's really smart. The amount of clever people I've met today, I'm like, wait, I will have more imposter syndrome than I've ever had. And I think that's it. Cybersecurity just manufactures it because it's changing all the time. And we talk ourselves out of applying for roles, out of asking questions, out of stepping up, because we just think, oh, everybody's better than me. Everybody's got more than I have. Oh, this, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm this, I'm that. And believe me, I tick every one of those boxes. I think I still do. So when I say sometimes we have to blag it, I don't mean you have to lie, but just sometimes you've got to step into things before you think you're ready. And just trust that you will grow into them. So if you recognize yourself on that slide, you're in good company, and let me show you how that played out on my particular path. So in 2014, I signed up for this access course and did a degree at the university here in business information systems. I was so uncomfortable because I was in my 40s. I was sitting in class with the 18, 19-year-olds. The boys would never even sit next to me, probably because I reminded them of their moms. I cried in the maths class because I didn't even know how to enter some of the stuff into the calculator. It was hard. It was so uncomfortable. But there was an internship in third year, and I went to a startup and said, could I be your intern, but on my terms? Because I was a single mom, I had a full-time job, I had a whole bunch of other stuff. I couldn't be a traditional intern. And just by chance, it was 2018 when GDPR came in, and they gave me that job to help implement it. And I actually loved it because I was like, this is awful. Everybody hates it. How can I find the positive in it? And I'm an all or nothing person, so I sort of dived in. And I don't think there's a thing about GDPR that I don't know at this point in my life because I'm obsessive. And then they asked me to do some of the security awareness training on the developers. And I was like, you can't make me do that. That's like, teaching them to suck eggs. But actually, they were good developers, but they weren't necessarily good security people. So I realized I could teach quite a bit of sort of basic cyber hygiene. Like, don't put your passwords on a Post-it. But when I graduated, nobody would employ me because they didn't know what I could do for them. My CV didn't make sense. They couldn't fit me in a box. So I thought, I better start my own business. So I started a business consulting in GDPR. And it was okay. I enjoyed it. And then COVID came along. And I can tell you that nobody wanted to hear about GDPR during COVID. I was like... So I did a lot of security awareness training for companies and got more and more into the cyber side, which had always interested me. And so all the way along, I'm learning and I'm gaining all these skills that I right now realize with my CISO training. The university asked me to come back and lecture in cybersecurity, and I lectured in the course that I was on and on the master's program, and I just loved it because made me learn every week whatever I needed to teach. I needed to learn it so well so that I could simplify it to teach it and at least answer the questions. And then I also, because COVID came along, I applied to the New Frontiers program to build an app called CyberPi, which was to help small businesses do their own like DIY cybersecurity and try and democratize it, because it was fine if you had a big company with a big budget. If you were a 10-person company, cybersecurity kind of wasn't an option. You didn't have that extra skill. So I learned a lot there, and it gave me a standing in the cyber community, and it gave me some confidence as well. But reality came along, and actually I couldn't survive financially. So I sold my soul, and I went to work at the Big Four for 2 years. And I worked in the cybersecurity and data privacy division at PwC. Not my best 2 years of my life. It was hard. But I learned a lot, and they certainly introduced me into all the GRC side, because all the new regulations were coming down the line, whether it was DORA, NIS2, the Digital Services Act, the Digital Masters Act. So many things came out of those 2 years. And then I landed up at Acorn, and I am the CISO now. I started off with the Information Security Manager, and now I'm the CISO. So a very, very squiggly path. And it's certainly not a perfect ladder, but each sort of messy chapter just built skills, perspective, and relationships that I could use as I went along. So there was many times when I nearly backed out. When they asked me to lecture in cybersecurity, I don't have a master's, and I was lecturing to the master's students in cybersecurity. If I thought, I did think about it, I think, I can't do this. I'd never lectured before. But funny enough, I'm standing here, and this is where I used to be, and I was quite comfortable, and I loved it. And I still keep in touch with the students, because there were students there that as a result of my lectures, they then went on into either cybersecurity or privacy, because I brought it to life, and I just put my joy into the lectures, building my own app. I had no skills to build an app. When I figured it out, and I bought an off-the-shelf product, and I changed it and tweaked it and got lots of help. But if you'd asked me at the beginning, can you build an app? I was like, no. Going to university, I said, I'd never done maths, I'd never done any of these things. And my first job at PwC, I don't even know if I should tell you this. I got the job description from a friend, and it had all these lovely soft skills, and it sounded like a bit of me. So I was like, yeah. And they gave me the first interview, and then when I was preparing for the main interview, I found the second page of the job description, and it was a cloud engineer, senior cloud engineer. I had nothing. And I was like, I felt sick, and I thought, no, I'm going to have to phone them and just cancel the interview. I can't look like an idiot in this interview. And I thought, don't do that. So for 2 weekends, there was nothing about cloud security that I didn't learn. And I got case studies and examples and everything. But they'd obviously seen beyond my CV or beyond my application and saw my CV. And I got the job. So if there's ever an example of apply for the job that you don't have the skills for, I'm there. And even the CISO role, I Googled the girl who'd done it, the woman who'd done it before me. She had all these certifications. She'd been there for years. I was like, I can't do that. I can, and I'm doing it really well. So I am the thing. But we all will do the same thing. So what it also taught me is just my perspective of all the other stuff has actually been really useful to get me through things. So your difference is your advantage. And we're constantly talking about the talent shortage in cybersecurity because we're kind of subconsciously looking for the stereotype. And if you come from another industry or another career or another stage of life, you see risk differently. You understand different people, different pressures, different trade-offs. And you've probably already had to kind of translate between groups, whether it's operations and management or customers and tech or frontline and board. And that's exactly what security leadership is. So our lived experience, having had other careers and responsibilities, that gives us that empathy and judgment. And honestly, that's what the execs and the board and leadership are looking for. Those are the skills that they want. I mean, silly things like, not silly things, but when I've used my marketing background and when all those regulations came out, I made cheat sheets that were so easy to read and simplified what the regulation was and what it meant to people. So it was like an idiot's guide. If you knew nothing about it, and somebody said, oh, what about this regulation coming down the line? If you just read that one pager, you'd be able to have a good conversation about it. So I've brought all my skills in as I've gone. Now when I'm negotiating with vendors and stuff and I have to decide between a startup or an established company, my experience of the startup world is really playing into it. And I understand the pressures, but I also understand that they're so good at what they do, and they're lean and they can do things faster. So I have that perspective that I bring to the job. And for me as well, I remember driving one day and I was so mad because nobody gave me a job, and I was just like, be the change you want to see. And I think it means like if you don't see people like you in the role, that's the thing, be the change. So go into a role that doesn't have anybody that looks like you. Because that's how you can make the change. We need people in different backgrounds stepping into it. And I think one of my other biggest motivators, there was somebody I met once, and he kind of offered for me to go up to his company and meet people and talk about different roles and things. Then he ghosted me. I was like, it really knocked my confidence, and I went for another job, and it was a tech job, and then they tried to move me into marketing because I'm sort of nice and chatty. And I was like, really? But my best motivator was to be successful. If you be successful, that's the best revenge. Because you live your best life, and the people who turned you down or underestimated you, they're looking at you now realizing what a mistake they made. So prove those people wrong. That's your best way you can do it. So once I started valuing my differences, I then had to tackle the next problem, which is I didn't feel qualified on paper for half the things that I wanted to try. So job adverts are a joke. Especially now they're written with AI. They are wish lists. Don't not read them like I did, but don't let them stop you at all. And no one ever feels 100% ready. And the better question is, can I learn the missing bits fast enough? And I think that's it. Just back yourself. Trust that you will. And believe me, I have gaps. And some of them are being smart enough to go to the right person and say, can you explain this to me like I'm 5? Or I don't understand. And some of them are being smart enough to quietly Google and put through ChatGPT or whatever to figure out what they are, because I'm thinking I'm supposed to know these things. And you can learn really quickly when you have to and when you're in the job. So just the other thing is, I know it's such a cliche, but change can't happen when you're in your comfort zone. And I look back and all the times when I've been dying, even in my first 6 months of the CISO role, I died every day. But that's where the best things happen, is when you're actually dying, because you're fighting so hard and you're learning, and for me, that's when I'm at my best. So this is also when I learned one of my favorite sayings is say yes, then figure out the details. Now it can go wrong sometimes, but if you thought about it, you would talk yourself out of it. I would have talked myself out of that, out of going to university if I'd known what was involved. I would have talked myself out of the CISO role. I would have talked myself all of these things. So sometimes just say yes and then figure out the details. And blagging, I do blag a lot, but it's more about backing yourself, not faking it. You're not lying. You're not saying, I'm a cloud engineer, because you're going to get found out in 5 minutes. But there are things that you really can do and you can bring to the table. And that's, I'm now in a role of leadership. You have to live outside your comfort zone. There's a whole bunch of stuff that is out of your control that you don't know. And it's quite a nice place to be. So for me, the answer is also don't settle for that side room. So I have to be very careful about this. The women in cybersecurity groups are really good, but I don't want to be at the side table, which is women in cybersecurity. I just want to be at the main table, which is people in cybersecurity, because that's where you can make the change. That's where the conversations happen. And we need the side groups, but your aim is always to be at that top table, that main table, and to make space for other people at that main table. So this is the other lesson. There's no single CISO template. You can go and look at, I think it was Owen who did a talk earlier about CISO careers, and I was thinking I'd love to volunteer, because I bet you I'd mess up all his stats, because I don't match a single thing, do I? Not even close. So we have this picture of what a real CISO looks like. And it's just a mythical kind of all-rounder. Yeah, they're a master hacker, they're a cloud expert, they're a compliance genius, they're great at communicating. There is no such thing as a template. Because in practice, CISOs come from all sorts of backgrounds, and also cybersecurity wasn't a thing. It used to be the IT department in the basement. And then one day they became cool and got to move upstairs and get bigger salaries. So that a lot of the CISOs came from the IT department in the basement. There is just no sort of template. But your common sort of threads about what a CISO does is that they know about business, they know about risk, they have good judgment, good communication, they can connect security with the organization. Like, what does the organization care about? And honestly, they just want you to make the problem go away. And when we were doing the DORA budget, we said, we need X amount of money for the DORA budget. And our CEO said, well, that's like €1 million worth of sales I have to do to cover that. And I never forget that, because now every time I think about when I ask for money, I'm like, okay, what will the business not buy instead? And how important is this compared to some of the other stuff? So I have to come at it from a business point of view. And because I had so many businesses and so many jobs and so many careers, I really get that. Even with the budgeting side, I get that, there's only a finite amount of money and everybody wants a piece of it. So just to take you to the end now, do you still feel like an imposter? Go back to that list. After hearing all of this, if you still recognize yourself in at least one of these, but now reframe it, these are actually the things that will get you the job, get you to move up. These labels don't disqualify you. So being too young might mean you're actually closer to new tech and fresh thinking. Being too old might mean you have battle scars and pattern recognition and leadership experience. Being a career changer means you already know how to climb one learning curve, and security is just another. So the industry doesn't just have room for your curved path, it actually benefits from it. And if everyone came through the same pipeline, we'd just miss a lot of blind spots. So another big lesson for me is this rising tide lifts all the boats. And the more space we make for these curved paths and the career changes and the people who don't match the stereotype, the better that this industry becomes for everyone, even the people who did not follow the traditional path. So part of my job now is to be the kind of leader who helps lift that tide. And I do. I connect with everybody on LinkedIn. I've helped people with job interview preparation. I'm always sort of making space for people to come in and be speakers, pushing people, helping them discover what their strengths are. Because the amount of times I've said to people, well, what are you good at? And they can't tell me. And I'm like, if you can't tell me what you're good at, you can't go for a job. Because in a job, they're lazy. They just want to say, I interviewed this guy and he's really good at project management and he loves doing, coding or something. But you actually have to tell them that. And so you have to figure it out yourself. Just before here, I had a conversation with a lady who's left now, and she was talking about her job, and I said, she's doing a master's, but she's working. And I was like, so what's next? What's your master plan? She said, I don't know. So I was like, what are you good at? And the more she talked about it, I said, it sounds like you're actually really good at project management. And in cyber, you need really good project managers. And wouldn't it be good to have a project manager who'd been at the sort of coalface and worked with the developers and worked with all the technical problems, but was also a really good communicator? And I think I've set her off on a path now. So if I can help anybody like that, then I always will, because I know when I was in the depths of trying to find a job and nobody understood who I was, but I knew what I wanted to do. There were people I reached out to who were amazing, and there were people who I reached out to who weren't. And so again, I want to be that person, and I will be. So on that note, with my final sort of parting thing, your path doesn't have to be straight, but it just has to keep moving. I think that is the clearest thing. You are never done. Just change can't happen in your comfort zone. So I hope at the end of the day, when you're all very tired and you've listened to sort of lots of technical talks, that was just some light-hearted entertainment, but maybe inspired you or helps if you're stuck. And more than happy to take any questions. As long as it's not about cloud engineering. Any questions?
Hello.
Hi. Claudia.
How are you?
I'm good.
How are you enjoying insurance?
It's a learning curve because it's a very regulated industry, which I had not come from. So I didn't understand the power of the central bank and the fear of inspections and things like that. But it's good because I won't do anything unless I understand why I need to do it. So, like, I hate taking the bins out, but I take them out because if I don't, there'll be rats, etc., etc. And so I think policies, like the only policies anybody knows in a company are the sick leave policy and the holiday policy. Nobody ever reads any of the other policies. So I really struggle with writing policies. But I understand now why we have them for the auditors and the governance and the bank, and I've kind of stripped out all our policies and made them so simple and so rule-based so that they do what they need to do, but I know nobody's going to read them. Well, the people that count, there's the place where the joyous stuff happens in the procedures, and you can write what you like in those. But it's an interesting space to be, and yeah, it keeps you focused, because I would definitely be more of a cowboy, but you can't be a cowboy in such a regulated industry. So that's actually been quite good for me.
I was very happy to hear it. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, you're free to go now and go off, get your wristbands and go and have a nice evening. And just thank you to everybody for coming today and to the organisers, because it's been a really, really, really good event. And saying so many, sort of just surrounded by so many sort of smart people.